I'm, um, I'm Pete Mather. I'm the host for today's presentation, and I'm representing the academic excellence team within the Strategic Planning Committee. And this is one of our initiatives. I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Are you all hearing that? Oh, okay. I'll keep going. But we're doing these presentations every other week to help people get get some ideas on how to use technology in effective ways. And we're very happy today to have Thom Stevenson. And I know I see Thom, well, on normal times almost every day when I walk in from the parking lot, and he has a bustling classroom normally. And so really happy to hear what he has to say today. One of Thom's real interests is kind of food access, food insecurity issues, and I don't know if he's going to give a little bit more background about that, but I would like to hear a little bit about kind of those interests, which are, I guess, in the framework of social justice that a lot of us care about. And I appreciate your work in that area, Thom, and thanks for taking this time with us today. So I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So, well, I thought I'd take this opportunity today to kind of mesh several things together. I'm going to share a couple teaching strategies and then some information in reference to some resiliency during this time period. And then also, I'm going to a little bit of information about my policy interests. And I want to start it off before I start the presentation to tell you that on the weekend when the university announced that we would be moving to online instruction, it was 27 texts later that I received a note from students to say, oh my good gosh, what is it going to be like? We're not going to be in the kitchen anymore. So what are we going to do to ensure that we're still going to meet? What are the learning requirements? What are we going to do to make sure that we're still going to be able to graduate and all those type of things? And I said, we'll do what we need to do as a team in order to ensure that all that happens. So I appreciate the opportunity today to talk a little bit about food and about resiliency. And then, so let's get started. My hopes are today that during this session you'll learn several takeaways, that you'll find some new strategies for reducing stress in your life. We all know that stress is part of what we're dealing with right now. I heard the latest statistic this morning that said that it takes 5 positive comments to take away 1 negative comment. And so we know that there's all kinds of things happening. If you're in Ohio, you hear we've got Governor DeWine with Wine with DeWine that's happening, and then we have the president's kind of updates, and so there's information coming from all kinds of places, and our students are concerned about trying to decipher what is or is not correct, and so are our older population and everyone in between. I'm also hoping that you take away 3 new strategies to use technology, and that's to help students learn. And then I'm also hoping that you could come away with 3 new strategies for time management. Why is it important that we stay connected to our students? And so I found this interesting site that is talking a lot about COVID and how it's affecting our students today. And one of the high school students wrote this simple haiku, and it says, "Silent infection. I am covering my face, too afraid to breathe." For me, it's very powerful. I mean, you don't need a lot of words to understand that students are fearful, and just like us all, but and we're a little more resilient, I think, at this time than some of them are. So there's some thoughts to ponder when we talk about learning new practices and new processes. And I put up a picture here on the left. This is my happy place. So if I'm not in the kitchen, the beach is the place where I hope someday I'll be sitting at a patio doing my research and looking out. And so this is a photograph that I took last year I'm intending on being in Myrtle Beach in July, and so this is what keeps me focused. It's like, I'm working my way toward ensuring that we have a successful rest of the semester, and then also this summer I'm able to kind of check in my happy place. And so the ways of de-stressing that we typically had before, those are now off the table. And that means going to the gym, doing sports, meeting with friends and coworkers. Although I can tell you that I've been playing Yahtzee and Loteria, which is the Mexican bingo, via remote on Zoom and also Teams with my 84-year-old friend in Ithaca, my mentor, and also with my 18-year-old nephew in Toledo. And they've never met. And so we've been able to use Zoom and Teams to make that happen. And so I love this quote from John Forsythe. He's an Albany, New York professor, and he's actually written a book about it's called The Acceptance and Commitment Theory for Anxiety Disorders. And he says that humans find comfort and safety in the predictability of the routines of daily life. And so we know that those routines are not in place now. And so somehow we have to determine how we can better create new routines going forward. And we'll have to determine what that looks like as we come out of what is this situation that we're in right now. I thought I would spend some time getting us prepared for taking on what could be the potential anxiety that students bring to the table, and also the anxiety that we bring to the table. And so the most helpful routines are the ones that meet essential human needs for both competence and relatedness. And that's what Joel Minden, who's a psychologist at the Chico Center for Cognitive Behavior Theory, talks about. And so some of the things that he says that we aren't doing a good job of right now is that we aren't paying attention to how we sleep, and we aren't paying attention to the things that we need to do in order to take care of ourselves. And so I love these tips for getting a good night's sleep, because I don't know about you all, but 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm wide awake. This morning, I knew I had a presentation. So when I got out of bed, I picked up my phone and my wallet. And I'm like, where are you going? You're not going to be walking out anywhere. So it's really crucial, I think, for us to realize that these are different times, and they're different times for our students. And so, but in order to be prepared for them, we have to take good care of ourselves. We have to put the mask on ourselves. We have to be prepared and ready to have conversations with them that may or may not be difficult. I can tell you that I'm in my PhD cohort, and I'm in this residency right now, this kind of online residency for the next 10 days. And there's another colleague who's actually in the residency with me, and he was just treated for prostate cancer. And he said that when this happened, he thought it was like one more knock at his door. And he said for the first couple days, he couldn't get out of bed. And so him and I are having a daily check-in in the morning, and we're having a daily check-in at night. And so far, he's been able to write 10 additional pages in the last 3 days. And we know that creating some kind of structure for people that have some kind of stressful situation going on is really powerful. So I wanted to take a look at some of these tips for getting a good night's sleep. So one is really calming your mind and body in the afternoon. And what this study says from the cognitive behavior is that 4 to 6 hours before bed, you should limit your intake of alcohol, caffeine, and nicotine. And 2 hours before bedtime, we should shut our computers off. And so I know for some of us, it's like, we're going to work right up to the last minute, but that can be a real struggle in trying to get a good night's sleep. And so it also says that you should avoid napping, that you should create a bedtime routine, and that you should keep your bed for sleeping only, and then get out of bed if you can't sleep. And this is one of the things that was new to me. So oftentimes I kind of use that Ernest Hemingway kind of approach to writing. It's like sit down and type until your fingers bleed, but sleeping a different story. So if you can't sleep within the first 20 minutes, you should get up and do something boring, kind of in dim light. And then you should write down your thoughts at bedtime so you have an opportunity to kind of get those out of your head. I now have a little notepad that sits beside my bed that I write down my thoughts and comments that I can go back to when I'm actually at my computer the next day. And I think it's also important to note, I hope you're keeping track of some of the learning, because at the end, we're going to practice a technology approach, if all goes well. We're going to actually work on Kahoot. And so I'm going to have a little Kahoot quiz for you to do. I also want to talk a little bit about tips for taking care of yourself. And so one of the tips is to stay active. And then another one is, and I'm going to forward on this PowerPoint to Helen because I think there are a lot of really good links for you to use. And so one of them is there's a link to a site called Yoga Classes with Adriene. And she's considered to be one of the foremost yoga experts, and her videos are all free. So there's tons of people trying to figure out, how to, take more money for their classes, the online master's class and some of that other stuff, not Masters Us, but Masters in Writing class. Some of the other sites are doing that, but this site is actually free. And so, and then another site is called Take 10 to be Zen. And it actually has an insight timer. So you can set up a little timer where you can meditate for 10 minutes. And I saw probably 4 different CEOs that say that that's what they're doing now, is that they're actually setting up their meditation timer first thing in the morning to get their head cleared, and then they're ready to go. One of the coolest new sites is there's one where you can actually build a virtual tree. And the virtual tree is really powerful because you can do it in a team. So if you go to this site, and let's just say that you are a faculty member who works across pedagogies, and maybe you want to stay connected to somebody who's in ed policy, and somebody who's in architecture, and somebody who's in engineering, like what I've been working on with the cafe that's going to be the Ornery Vets Cafe, which will be by PassionWorks. And so but we're setting up this process where we build a virtual tree. And actually, it's a nonprofit where each time that you log in together and you log a healthy activity, the tree continues to keep growing. And if you don't log in and you don't pay attention to the tree goes away. And so it seems like kind of a funny premise, but you're going to see in one of the later slides that one of the really powerful ways to make online learning important is to create a team. And so also the other recommendation is to check out forums. One of my things that I love is to make a homemade meal. And so there's a great slide on how to make things healthy as far as food choices. And you're going to see in a later slide that I'm actually going to teach you how to make Vietnamese spring rolls today. And so that was made in my own kitchen. And I apologize for in advance, a videographer. I am not. But I think it's important for me to show students, and I'll talk a little bit about why the AQ process that I'm in right now states that making your own videos is powerful. It also recommends that you take a break from the news, make your own music playlist, and then declutter everything for 5 minutes. I know sometimes when at the end of the day, it's like I'm working on a puzzle, I'm grading papers, I'm doing my dissertation, I'm doing a little bit of everything, and then I got to kind of organize myself so I'm ready to go for the next step. I think that one of the things that I wanted to show you today was I really wanted to show that watching or reading some kind of uplifting message is really powerful. And each message that's provided in a different way, a different format, could potentially connect to a different student. So earlier in the semester, I made a video where I made apple crisp. And so I made it right before students were kind of sent home for spring break. And one of the things that I found is that 11 out of my 15 students in one class all made it. And they all sent me pictures and videos and sharing it with their parents. And so for me, that says that that mechanism is really powerful. And it's powerful because at this time, the thing I'm most concerned about right now is I'm concerned about them ghosting. I'm concerned about them not staying connected. And I'm concerned about them, allowing stress to overtake them. And so I warn you in advance, this next video I'm going to show you is a little long, but I think it's really important for us to stay connected and to stay motivated. And so I'd like to share this video with you. So we'll move forward. So it talks a little bit that PowerPoint was really meant to empower individuals to kind of embrace what is this new style of learning that needs to happen. And so that video really kind of ends on this term that says that we all need hope. And studies show that people who go through very difficult life experiences can emerge from them with a stronger sense of psychological resilience, rekindle relationships, and a renewed appreciation for life. The interesting statistic that's out there right now is that coronavirus will leave more than 1 million students in limbo. And that's a really strong number for us. That's one that we need to pay attention to. And so that's why online learning is one of those ways to keep them connected. Education should instill in us an informed comprehension of our past, an engaged connection to our present, and a joyous sense of confidence in our future. So online specifically, Susan Seltrick, which is really does a lot of work around online learning, talks about the character strengths that you need to have in order for people to believe in online learning. And those character strengths are wisdom, knowledge, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. And they can definitely influence your approach to online teaching. And so using this knowledge to enhance our lives, our performance, and our enjoyment of work is a way to help students feel more connected to the experience. I thought I would include what is the 7 best practices for online instruction. So as many of us move to that platform right now, some of the leading experts talk about making it what is a group effort. And so that's why the tree concept, the virtual reality tree one that I spoke about, can be a powerful tool to make that happen. One of the other 7 best practices is to focus on active learning. That means involve students in the process. I've had students making their own videos now and submitting them back to me. And so they're making their own videos as they learn to cook in the kitchen. The other piece is to chunk the lessons together. So we had probably about 6 weeks after we came back from spring break where we really had all this work to do to kind of get them back on track and to get them back into the process. For my class, I was deep in the middle of having them design a restaurant. And so what I needed to do was, and we had been creating an online class, which Patrick and his team had been working with me creating videos. Those videos are a lot stronger than the videos that I've made in my own kitchen, and because that's what they do every day. And so, but I think the difference between those videos and the ones that we see on YouTube, like the ones that I just shared, when you can hear them, is that they have me in them. And so, and that's my direct link to them, a connection to them, to make sure that they see the value in me stepping up to the plate. And in this AQ training that we're going through, this program with the American College and Universities about best practices for teaching, it talks about the fact that making your own videos is a very powerful way for students to feel connected. It also talks about keeping group sizes in online teaching small. That's for 20 to 30 students. And so what that might mean is that as we set up these teams, maybe what we do is rather than set up one large team for all of your students, if you have a large lecture opportunity, what you might do is set up several different cohorts as a recommendation for success. So maybe you set up Microsoft Team A for restaurant operations and design, Microsoft Team B, and so on and so on. And so the other piece to talk about is being present. And then there's a concept of parse your time. And so what does that mean? That means that when you're teaching classes online, so I give students my cell phone number and they connect directly with me all the time. And they text me, at any given time. I might get a text that says, I'm at the West Side Market and I just bought a rabbit and I don't know what to do with it. So could you tell me how to cook it and how to get it home safely? Or students text me and say, this recipe looks like this, and they show me a photograph and what went wrong with it. And so I love to be available, but one of the things that online teaching says, the best practice says, is that to plan for it, to plan a specific time where you're going to shut off your computer and you're going to shut off your phone and you're going to keep to a set class period or a time period in order to have things to be more present with them. And then the last one it talks about is embracing multimedia assignments. That means allowing students to submit their assignments however they feel best. So for instance, this semester we had 15 different research articles in our Intro to Food class, and they came from, each one came from a different part of the world, and each one of them tied back to a specific recipe. And that's where my videos are coming from and the videos that I'm presenting. And in tying that all together, what I did was, rather than only allow students to do a written reflection, I used a human-centered design. And so I allowed them to use PowerPoint or Prezi or whatever they felt was the best way to include a response back to me. And online practices instruction says that that's a great way to handle that. When we connect to a larger purpose with what we're working on, then we have more focus and energy. And I found this really interesting. There's a Dr. Fink who talks a lot about how to take Bloom's taxonomy to the next level. And so in the AQ, they specifically focus on Bloom's taxonomy. But Dr. Fink takes it to this additional step. And I want to go through them step by step today. So in hopes that you'll kind of take something away from it. And so they talk about that foundational knowledge, and we all know that that's important. And so foundation knowledge really picks up on the terms and concepts and principles that we're a part of, that's part of our own pedagogy. And then it talks about application and integration, but I love the human dimension. And so that's, for me, that's where the food instability, the nourishment comes into place. And so students oftentimes see specifically our industry as, I'm going to work in a restaurant, a hotel, and I'm going to work in what is the more traditional operations. But I encourage them to think about food from a different perspective. And a perfect example of why that's important is that for you, those of you who work in K through 12, we heard a lot about what teachers need to do in order to get students prepared to learn, in their homes. But one of the first things that we heard was, oh my good gosh, what are these students going to eat? What are we going to do about meals for these kids? And so food service workers, frontline workers stepped up, started making food, putting it in buses, and now they're delivering it door to door across cities all over the US. And they're doing that because 1 in 5 kids go hungry every night when they go to bed. And so encouraging our students to think about how nourishment happens, that it's part of how we need to live and survive, and how could they potentially play a role in that, allows them to really step up to the critical thinking level. And then it allows them to really care about someone other than themselves at this time. And we know that that's a really powerful way in order to have people work through resilience, is that whole thing that happens, in the brain when we make something and give it to somebody else, how it affects serotonin. And so tying these all together, this whole concept of taking care of ourselves, having students prepared to take care of others, allows them to learn how to become more resilient, and also how to better learn about their specific industry, and then also encourages them to want to learn more about the subject after the course is over. This was an example of one that I really wanted to share, and I'm going to hope this video will play, and I'm going to hope that the volume will play on this one. This is the one that I made. This is an example of how I would tie all those pieces together. So there's been a lot of negative conversation right now about Asia in reference to where the COVID virus came from. And there's been some pretty detrimental language that's staunched and privileged, that says that we want to hold somebody accountable. There's people that have been kicked off of buses because they've coughed in a way that people didn't think was acceptable, or there's people that have been really frustrated with other people because they look a specific way. And so, there's people that have even said this is the China virus. And so I really want our students to know that that's not acceptable language. And I want them to know, I want them to understand that the way to learn is by having them better understand the food and its connection to culture, because that's a great way for us to learn about culture in general. So an example of a learning outcome that I've created is that they read an article about both China and about Vietnam. And then I actually made a cooking video where I taught them how to make spring rolls. And these spring rolls, and have them understand where spring rolls originally came from. So they originally came from China, and they came from the farmers, and from the Eastern Ying dynasty. and then teaching them how to make it and the difference of the two from both China and Vietnam, and then encouraging them to make it and then send me photographs afterwards. And so I'm going to try to play this video. I hope the sound works. And so I made a little video today, or a little Kahoot game to play. Let me show you how that works then. Just take a second to load here. And so what I've done today is I've actually created a Kahoot that questions 7 of the things that we have learned in the PowerPoint thus far. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play it. If you have a Kahoot account, what you would do is you can play with using your phone, and which is what I often do with students. And so this is opening up the Kahoot site. And so the Kahoot site allows you to create your own little tasks, and it says if you're ready to play or ready to join. And so if you have a Kahoot account, what you could do is, and you gotta love the music. I'm gonna mute that for a second. And so what you would do is you would go to www.kahoot.it. And so if you guys could do that, that'd be great. And so if you could just go ahead and you could use it on your phone if you have that available. And I see Lindsay's in there, and I see a couple other people. And so you would just, it asks you for a game pin. And so the game pin is 2941168, just like you see on the screen. And so we're going to go ahead and wait. I see Rebecca's in there now. Great. Thank you very much. I see a no names in there. Okay. Allison's coming in. I see Connie's in there now. Thank you. And so it looks like we got 7 players. We'll wait just a second or more for people to come on in. And then we'll go ahead and get started. So, all right, let's go ahead and start our game today with Kahoot. And so there's 7 questions ready to go. And so let's get started. Question number 1 of 7. Which one below was not shared as a best practice for online instruction? So we have 5 answers, and it's make it an individual effort is the correct answer. And so earlier in the PowerPoint, we talked about making it a team effort. And so let's go for the next one. We had 5 correct answers. And so far, no name is in the lead with 888, and Connie is in second place with 883. So let's go to our next one. This is a true or false. So we got 6 correct answers, and we got 1 incorrect. And so let's see. Oh, she's at the top of the leaderboard there with 1,851 points. All right, let's do our next one. Spring rolls originated in Vietnam. True or false? We got 7 answers. They were really fast on the draw this time. It takes about 20 seconds. You should do it. So we have about half and half here for our 8 players, and so John moved ahead of Connie there, and so he was quick on the draw that time. All right, and John has the highest answer streak with 3 in a row correct answers. All right, our next question. Please denote the character needed.
Was the answer true or false?
The answer was false. Originated in China, not Vietnam. Please denote the character needed in online teaching. Wisdom, courage, temperance, or all of the above? Let's see. Yes, correct. The answer is all of the above. And John has a streak of 4 correct answers in a row. All right, our next one. Please denote which one is not a tip in regards to preparing to get a good night's sleep. Watch a science fiction movie right before bed. Develop a bedtime routine. Avoid napping. And get out of bed if you cannot sleep. And so, watch a science fiction movie right before bed is the correct answer. You want to actually, 2 hours before bed, you want to calm yourself down. And so, we'll see who's in first place now. John is still in first place. John has a streak with 5 correct answers in a row. Question 6 of 7. What are some of the ways to take care of yourself? 1. Take a break from the news. Check out forums. Check with your mates, or all of the above? All 8 got the correct answer. Yes, it's all of the above. And so let's see where we're at. So John is in first place with 6,822 points. All right, our next question, and the last one of the test. Which option is listed as part of the 6 ways in which student learning can be significant? A, foundational knowledge. B, all the above. C, application. Or 3, integration. All right, all of the above was the correct answer, and so that was C. And let's see. So on the podium, John is in first place. So Rebecca was in second place, and No Name was in third place. Betty was in fourth, and Pete was. I'm going to thank you all for playing. And that's an example of how you can use Kahoot. That's a really good way for you to stay in tune with your students when you're giving them tests or exams or quizzes, and just do little chunks of information, and you can do that periodically throughout the whole semester. And so that's one of the things that I did when I was actually having them create a performa. And so, and that was a great way for them to be able to see. That was a great way for them to be able to see the best practices that we were talking about. And so with that today, I'm sorry my videos did not play, but I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that I was extremely thankful for the opportunity to go through things with you today. I'll provide all the links to the 2 videos, and you'll get to learn how to make Vietnamese spring rolls. And so I hope you watch over yourself, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks so much, Thom. I want to open it up in case anybody has questions. I actually do. I want to start out with a question is, can you do Kahoots asynchronously?
You can. So you can play a game live right in the moment for the moment. Yep.
Great. Thanks. Any other questions?
No, I'm getting lots of thank yous. That's about it, I think.